Also said, real men apologize. Sometimes we think, well, it's the macho thing. I'm not going to apologize, but the real men, they do. And I remember remember the Happy Days years ago.
Oh yeah.
And Fonzie. I remember the one episode.
Yeah.
One episode, it was pointed out that he obviously, was wrong. And he tried to admit to it. He said, I was rude. I was rude. Dr. Chapman, 5 languages of apology, some great stuff. We are in the kitchen here with our kitchen couples, Mike and Diane and Eric and Kara. Yeah. And so he kind of touched on some buttons that kind of say, wow, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And I need to maybe be more on the apologetic side, saying, I'm sorry and I'm wrong.
Well, I love the fact that he's taken his 5 love languages concept and now translated it into how to best apologize to your spouse and how they need to receive an apology from you. Because we all, if you're in a healthy marriage or you're trying to be in a healthy marriage, apologizing to each other is almost a day-to-day thing.
I was about to say it's often.
Yeah, because it just happens.
And it's all about, as he said, dealing effectively with our failures. And we all have failures.
Yeah.
We all have multiple failures, probably every day. But dealing effectively with it so that it heals the relationship and it strengthens it and doesn't deteriorate.
So the first 2 he talked about what were they?
Expressing regret.
And accepting responsibility. Okay, so we have all taken the test. You can go onto our website at abetterus.tv and there's a link there where you can take the test too to discover your languages of apology. And it's very interesting to figure that out. And so for me, my top 2, he ranks them in order, the 5. My top 2 are the ones we're covering in this segment. So expressing regret and accepting responsibility. So expressing regret is
You got the same.
like we just really want to know that you get it. You feel the weight of what you've done. You say back to me what it is that you've done, and you own it. You own that that's what you've done.
You don't leave it at, I'm sorry.
Exactly.
But you expand more on, I'm sorry for doing this and this to show that you understand it. I would have loved if this was in like our marriage counseling or something, just because it helps you communicate better and strengthen each other as
it's
in
here
a
now.
relationship.
So
It's
now we
true.
can move
Right? 4 years later.
I love how, so the second one, number 2, accepting responsibility. When I took the test, that was actually the very bottom one. In fact, it scored 0 points with me, accepting responsibility. I actually don't need you to tell me what you did. I already know what you did. You don't need to accept the responsibility. Mine was in the second half of where he's going to explain it. So we'll get to that when that comes up. But I thought it was pretty interesting how mine was a 0.
That's not a priority for you.
I
Kara
don't need her
say,
to
I
accept the responsibility because we all know what happened.
Yeah. Okay.
It's funny how then another person will say, well, that's got to be right at the top. He's got to, and so, but we all have these different ways that we think what's meaningful to us in an apology.
Absolutely. My top one was regret. And then my second one is in the second half. Yeah.
Dr.
But
Chapman's going to
number one
cover
was
off
regret.
3 more to come.
on the other 3 in a minute, but so that's
interesting.
interesting.
That's
So
very interesting.
expressing regret, that's mine too. And so your top is the same.
You two
for both.
match.
So
Okay.
I'm the same as you.
Yeah.
So
And I was there too as the top one.
Yes,
The expressing regret.
Yeah.
But it was interesting that Dr. Chapman said that only there are 10% of men who will never apologize. Like he said, that's just not in them.
interesting.
Maybe because of the way they were raised. He said sometimes the way you were treated as a kid. When you get older, you kind of make this inner vow or something. I'm never going to have to apologize. And so that's almost sad, isn't it?
Yeah, and so that's why I know, Eric, you spoke very specific about accepting responsibility, very low in your, but as a man, for me, and I think the way the questions were asked, they were asking, what would you do? And so accepting responsibility for me would be, rather than saying, deferring it to someone else or something else, right? But to not only express regret, but take on the responsibility and say, yes, this is me. This is my responsibility. I did this, not someone else. It was me, and I apologize. I'm sorry.
And he also said, real men apologize. Sometimes we think, well, it's the macho thing. I'm not going to apologize, but the real men they do. And I remember remember the Happy Days years ago?
Oh, yeah.
And Fonzie. I remember the one episode.
Yeah.
One episode, it was pointed out that he obviously, was wrong. And he tried to admit to it. He said, I was rude. I was rude.
Couldn't
But-
get it out and
'cause
say a word.
He was the
Yeah.
quintessential, macho guy, and he was, the cool guy. And it was he was just pointing out how for
do
those
it.
type of guys,
Couldn't
it's
do
kind of
it.
hard to do.
Yeah.
So,
That-
go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say that's a clever way of positioning it. That real men apologize, and I would say real men who are hurt don't apologize, right? And so it's hard to say they're not real, right? They've probably experienced real hurt in their lives, and so being empathetic in every situation, I think, is important here.
I think and to be healthy, you've got to be well-rounded. And a lot of times, we've talked on this program a lot about when our baggage collides and we bring things with us, maybe that we're never healed from our childhood or whatever, past hurts. And I know that I was raised in a home where it was, there was not a lot of encouragement. In fact, there was a lot of pointing out when I did something wrong. And so I know Dr. Chapman was saying that usually people from that home, they vow, I'm never gonna. For me, I went the opposite direction. So it's easy for me to take responsibility, to take the blame. It's like, okay, you're probably right. It's probably my fault, just because that's the positioning. So in those instances, that's what it's important for both the husband and the wife to own up and say, no, we both are to blame here. Because otherwise, it's really tempting to just let that person take all the blame. They want to anyway, you know? Yeah.
And the hurt that might be there that's causing the lack of wanting to apologize, that's kind of a wall, and they can't really figure out. Maybe you might need to see someone that could help walk you through that, a counselor or whatever, because you want to have that strength. You got to have that. You want to become a better us.
Yeah. Well, coming up, Dr. Chapman is about to finish off the 5 languages of apologies and give us the other 3. So stay with us.
May I suggest that you learn what your spouse considers to be a sincere apology and learn to express your apology in each other's language. You make it much easier for them to forgive when you do so.